their mind, but the wanderer alone on the shore, shore, shore. The wanderer alone on the shore. There was a fight that kept them. The last hand on either hand was riders on Sion. It weren't at every farmer's house that was on the road. And where did they find an old pot of men's, and where did they sell the ass? There's a hairy ass there in a county fair at the place they call Hill.
Yeah, I'm not, we're looking at the 18 post stuff, and my best bet to find out what else they have. Yeah, they get this one. The reality of something good, there's a position right here. It's wrapping up now, I think they're kind of expression for the end spot for I think it's got $19 it's not all that, it's been steady,
I know the native guys are probably.
yes, beautiful day. Beautiful day, you know, the weather has been great. Nice breeze.
I saw a pretty good If a gun actually burst, it would probably be from where a powder charge was.
Right. Now, will they use this type of gun on the boats?
Yeah, I mean it's the same basic barrel, but the actual amount of way different carriage. Well, you'll see this is a field piece, which means you can carry it around ideally by horse.
Right.
We sometimes do it with a bit of manpower.
Yeah.
But the thing was, you can't have this sort of wheel in this kind of elevation. The carriage you'll see on like Royal Navy ships of the day or whatever was sort of these same two braces here on the side, but it's on still a squat little wooden carriage with much smaller wheels. That's because they're not really moving it side to side. If it's if it's just shooting through one of those little galley windows, then it just needs to be moving back and forward. The key actually as well in Royal Navy firing was whereas this will only rock back, I mean we don't really get any recoil with the charge. For them it was absolutely necessary to have small wheels so that one charge would send it all the way back, and that way the men inside the ship can still load it from the front. If it's still sticking out when it fires, there's no way they can reach out of that galley window and try and load something in there. But it's just a smaller carriage, same size pieces, depending on the pound. Like Royal Navy ships would also use something called a carronade. So it's like a short squat cannon, a little fatter, a little thinner, or a little less long, a little shorter. They would fire the same pound of balls. I mean, they had one for every poundage, but usually it'd also be loaded with musket shot or grape shot, and that was just little smaller balls that would sort of spread out like a shotgun ball.
Right.
So it wasn't always just a one sort of like a, I don't know what you call it, a sniper, a single shot like that. This was just to clear much closer range to clear a large number.
So you say closer range, are you talking like 15?
Yeah,
20 feet?
I mean this thing could fire with a ball and a full charge. It could go a kilometer or more. For grape shot or canister, we're talking max. I'd say probably like 100 yards. Beyond that, it's just dispersing too far.
Right.
But I imagine actually it would be able to go a bit farther than that. But it's sort of, on Navy ships anyways, they wait till they are right beside them, 50 yards, and unload with canister and grape.
Yeah.
And
damage that way.
Exactly, right? Well, there's sort of a thing between different navies of the day.
Right.
The Brits, for example, prized gunnery, but they prized just being able, same as on land, being able to fire really fast. It didn't really matter where you're aiming. The American and French navies used a different philosophy. They were more about you stay at your distance and you try and use these guns and the long guns to shoot off their sails, the masts. Mm-hmm. That way you have them down, you can come in and you can actually shoot them from any angle, whereas their guns are sitting there useless.
Right.
The Brits' idea was just, I mean, during the Napoleonic era, actually, was just kind of go straight at them, right? Get up close to them and just maul them by firing faster than they could ever hope to. But the Brits were often therefore loading the tops of their decks with carronades, and not so much prizing someone who could, load and carefully aim one of these as someone who could just shove it in there, get it there, and fire, right? There's some pretty horrific naval battles that were fought on the
Right.
premise, right? Because you get so close. And you have so much fire being exchanged between the two times to a different location. Whereas we usually sort of think, well, you'd wheel your cannons up and they'd sit in one battery.
Right.
What was the norm in Europe, for Napoleon anyways, was to have these moving everywhere. Now, in the War of 1812, you won't really read of a lot of battles where there are more than like 5 or 6 cannons present.
Right.
Lundy's Lane, for example, I think it was like somewhere from 7 to 10 guns that were there total, field pieces. But at forts, you could have, it was much different. You didn't need all the artillery, the horses to carry the artillery away.
Right.
You could just mount a lot of these on the wall, similar to a battleship. We're from Fort Wellington, where they have, of course, like they have 4 separate kind of bastions sticking out for artillery, and they could put them in the courtyard or over the gate as well. But generally speaking, out here you wouldn't see so much of that mobile field artillery. For the Brits, this is more just move it out, find a good position on the flanks, and fire the gun. I might have strayed from your original question there. Sorry, I can't.
No.
But yeah, no, that's those are for keeping usually your tools, but usually just your round shot. And then if this was mounted on a wall, say on a fort, then you'd have sort of a central magazine.
Right.
And they build up a pile of, cannonballs or whatever they needed behind the area. Either way, what was more a worrisome issue was keeping your powder safe.
Yeah, exactly.
Because that could, that's why we have, for example, those tools well behind, so you don't have any kind of fire near the cannons here.
Right.
And I'm not sure exactly what it was for, in a battle on a field where they'd keep it, but they probably just have an easy supply a bit further away from the fire,
Yeah.
where they could run forward the powder charge and then push on. For example, the muskets you see over there, those wouldn't fire at all, simply because the priming would go. For a charge like this, because you're putting it down in a fairly secure bag or what have you for the actual powder charge, and then you're putting down usually some cannonballs, and in Navy ships they'd actually load a full sort of slot over top of that to keep it in, because it could sway on the ship. These would usually fire. The priming you use for this is very, very fine powder, and even if it has a couple drops of rain on it, you can still touch a side of that and it'll usually go off. So cannons can sometimes fire in the rain. Not in heavy rain, but in light drizzle or mist or aggressive dew, as my math teacher called it, you could get these to fire. Not the muskets. But it'd be much more difficult.
You think they would have like a little canopy or the front,
Yeah, I've thought about maybe adding one of these. Is kind of a joke.
yeah.
But they never.
No, back then you would,
Yeah.
just to keep some of the
Yeah.
rain off it.
I imagine it was a viable strategy for the Royal Navy ships. Of course, they're under decks.
Right, that's not a problem.
But what they might use though is also, I know that they actually install flintlocks like we have on our muskets for those Royal Navy ones.
Okay.
So that rather than having flame like that basically downstairs on a ship, near the powder room or near all the wood, is you just had to yank a cord and that set off a small spark, and that's what sets it off, rather than having to worry with the whole burning candle shebang in the lower decks.
Okay.
So that made it really easy for them to fire in a Navy ship. On land, with a bit more difficulty, you could still fire one of these, but not in a real person. What you could do is you get those sort of mechanisms. At the same time, they're introducing this for rifles. You could open up the full thing, open up the back, and actually ram and introduce things from behind, then close it up and set off the charge. And that could load faster than having that change everything.
So if you saw the ship at the distance, you would crank that down so you have more of an angle.
Yeah, this here is basically just for setting your angle so they can fire further or shorter. The other thing you do though is usually have someone sighting. So your gun captain, the guy who's ultimately going to fire it, is trained. So he's taking a look over here, and he knows pretty much. He knows mathematics. These gunners would actually have to be trained in math. They'd have to go through more schooling than your average soldier. He'd have to know distances, weight of shot, powder, so on, and be able to basically look at a ship, say sailing through the river, and be able to calculate, just crunch it in his head, where you should fire, when you should fire, at what angle. And so he'd also be adjusting them. He'd say traverse, and they'd have to move the gun according to an angle, and then he'd time that shot to fire. But you'd have one person, because these, unlike the muskets, could actually be aimed, you'd have someone who sort of knew your business. At least one.
How accurate are they?
How accurate? These are much, much more accurate than the muskets you see over there. Mostly for the reason that the actual volume producing for that is much closer to the actual size of the barrel. And as well, I mean, if you think of it, right, have either way it's going to be smaller than the muzzle. So think about the effect in a very small ball where it can whiz around, fly out, as opposed to a very large ball where it's not going to vary that much flying out. It's just sort of physics. It means that this could be accurate at that 1 kilometer range. This could be pretty good if you knew your elevation. Beyond that, though, it might vary a bit. Mostly, you just kind of spend force. It wouldn't go that. One thing they could do is they could actually skip it across water or on land. Alternatively, they could actually get bouncing shots. But imagine the water one is a little harder than these.
Yeah. That'd be something too.
Oh, quite something.
Let's try it.
A lot of, load her up. A lot of these land battles, though, then would be terrorized by sort of the prospect of a bouncing cannon. Right. It's not. I mean, if it hits you dead on, it's even worse. But it's not like if it just hits the ground, like it's going to stick there with thud. Right. It can still be that bounce and flat land. So that was always a concern. Right? Pretty horrific injuries too.
That name of the song is called The Pitman. It's about the coal miners, you know, come on then Jim, come on, let's go. Time you were getting your big boots on. Time you were learning to pick and shovel and learning a pitman's pay. And so he's going off to work in a coal mine when he's 16 years old. He'll probably not come out of it.
Where I heard that from, that's Sister Wentworth, Patricia Murray. Band here from the island.
Yeah. Died his fair captain did cry, if I don't get that maid on the shore, 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 I don't get that maid on the shore. You know that one? Maiden, she lived all alone. She lived all alone on the shore. Oh, there's none she could find, there's none she could find that would comfort her mind, but to wander alone on the shore, 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 to wander alone on the shore. Got that? There was a fine captain and he sailed a fine ship. The weather was fine, it was fair. Oh, I shall die, the fair captain did cry, if I don't get that maid on the shore, 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 if I don't get that maid on the shore. With much persuasion they got her on board. They seated her down on a chair. Oh, He invited her down to his cabin so far. Farewell to all sorrow and care, care, care. Farewell to all sorrow and care. I'll sing you a song that's fair made it cry. The captain was leaping for joy, oh. She sang it so sweet, so soft and complete. Some captain and sailors asleep, sleep, sleep. Some captain and sailors asleep. Well, she robbed them of gold and she robbed them of jewels. She robbed them of costly wares, oh. The captain's broadsword she used as an oar, and she paddled away to the shore, shore, shore. She paddled away to the shore. The men they were mad and the men they were sad. The men they were deep in despair, oh. For to see her away with her booty so gay, with the rings and the things and the fine fair robes, the rings and the things and the robes. Well, do not be mad or deep in despair, for surely you should have learned, oh. For I sang you to sleep and I robbed you so fair. I'm a maiden again on the shore, shore, shore. A maiden again on the shore. There was a fair maiden, she lived all alone. She lived all alone on the shore, oh. There's none she could find that would comfort her mind, but to wander alone on the shore, shore, shore. To wander alone on the shore. Did I just... Father won't slate you for your lack of kind. She stepped away from me, and this she did say, it will not be long, love, till our wedding day. Zion's flighted, so by thee. I'm deep in love and I can't deny it. My heart lies smothered in my breast. It's not for me to let the world know it. A troubled mind does know no rest. I lay my head on a cask of brandy. It was my fancy, I do declare. For when I'm drinking, I'm always thinking, a wishing Peggy Gordon were here. Oh, Peggy Gordon, you are my darling. Come sit you down upon my knee and tell to me very the knock. Have you any pots or kettles with rusty holes to block? Well, indeed I have, don't you know I have? Am I right for a laddie? Well, indeed I have. And a missus coming to the door, she asked me to come in. Said, you're welcome, Johnny Tinker, and I hope you brought your tin. Well, indeed I did, don't you know I did? Am I right for a laddie? Well, indeed I did. She took me through the kitchen and she led me through the hall. And the servants cried the devil as he come to block us all. Well, indeed I have, don't you know I have? Am I right for a laddie? Well, indeed I have. Well, she took me up the stairs, me lads, to show me what to do. And she fell on the feather bed and I fell on it too. Well, indeed I did, don't you know I did? Am I right for a laddie? Well, indeed I did. And she then picked up the frying pan and she began to knock. Oh, Mr. Tinker! But I let the servants know, me lads, that I was at me work. Well, indeed I was, don't you know I was? Tell me right for a laddie, well, indeed I was. She reached into her pocket and she drew out £20. Take this, me jolly Tinker, and we'll have another round. Well, indeed we will, don't you know we will? Tell me right for a laddie, well, indeed we will. Well, I've been a jolly tinker for these 40 years or more, and such a lovely job as that I never had before. Well, indeed I did, don't you know I did? You're right for a laddie, well, indeed I did. That's it.
He told me back to Russell, and I was doing as fast as I could to the film. I couldn't do it. All of those, he left it straight off the bottom.
Is that right?
Yeah. You know, space that eye.
Yeah.
What the hell you do?
Yeah.
Just hit, burn it,
Well, I was up in, you know where Lake Nosbonsing is?
Oh, yeah.
There's up by Callender.
Yeah.
Well, I went out there. I
Or
was,
pay for 2 years.
yeah, I went out there in a 14-foot canoe. And, I was, I had a guy with me, and we had fished along the south shore. And we weren't really getting much. And I said we should go across the other side a little bit. Eh? And I said, well, we'll do. I had a ground sheet, one of those military square, 7 feet square. I said, what we'll do? I said, we'll just put in this little thing here and we'll cut it. We'll cut a sapling, you know, and we'll use that ground sheet. Much
of the stuff I paint.
So you hold the ground sheet and all.
For womankind can ne'er be found, and every moment a pretty girl.